Hello and welcome to the Miko Bits show. And I'm your host, Miko Bits. Today, we're going to be talking about community, and we're going to be talking about the retail segment and a little bit about the institutional segment as well with Ayesha Kiani, who is with LedgerPrime. So looking forward to having this conversation. As with all of these shows, this is an opinion show, so anything we do talk about is not intended to be investment advice, so you should seek a licensed professional for all of that. So I guess without further ado, hey, Ayesha, how are you?
Hi, Miko. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, great having you on the Miko Bit show. So I guess let's launch kind of straight into it. I mean, I think one of the things that's very exciting right now is that Bitcoin seems to be kind of healthily supporting 16,000 US dollar price, right? So I'd love to kind of get your analysis and try to understand, what you think is happening and what you think may happen next.
I personally have been joking within my own family circle and my friends, non-crypto friends, that if we have a winner for 2020, out of the election, out of the pandemic, it's actually Bitcoin. That has survived the pandemic, that survived like crashing equity markets, almost. What did we see at 4,000 in March?
Oh man.
So remember that day? I mean,
I've blocked it out of my memory.
I can't because I still remember that day so well. I was like, okay, I don't know if I'll have my job tomorrow morning, but it was a great run while it lasted. But the thing is, like from 4,000 to like at this point it's 16,800.
Yep.
So yeah, the true winner is Bitcoin. So a lot of reasons, right? We think that aside from the fact that it has had institutional support for a while now, but this is the first time where these institutions have started coming forward and admitting it, that look, we're investing, we're trading Bitcoin, this is what our thesis is. But then the other thing is that we strongly believe that PayPal has helped a lot, which has created retail FOMO. So basically, spot price is currently driving the market, and everything else is following it.
Wow.
Great to see that, and I won't be surprised if we do touch 20,000 by like January or so.
Yeah, it seems like the floor support is really pretty incredible. I agree with you. One of the things that we are seeing is like the admitting it effect, right? Which is like
Yeah.
Druckenmiller's in, right? And then, I think it was even just today or yesterday, like Scaramucci is in, right?
So this is so,
With
and
Scaramucci.
this is something that I know we're supposed to talk about later. But the thing with Mooch is he's an investor in a couple of crypto projects and funds already, and he's been an investor since 2014. But this is the first time he's publicly admitting it.
Skybridge
Now,
is filed.
exactly. And then the other thing is, as far as Drunken Miller goes, I mean, he kind of like called it an efficient market, like it got compared it to gold, but kind of called it an inefficient, which it is. We all admit it is, but it's barely a 10-year-old asset 12-year-old asset at this point. So that, and then again, PayPal, 2017, early 2018 was when we saw cryptos rise. And I feel like Coinbase and the rise of Binance had a lot to do back then.
Yeah.
So again, this time around, it's another retail avenue that's driving the price up.
That's amazing and so fascinating, right? And obviously, like PayPal, a lot of people were shocked, actually. I personally was surprised because I opened my PayPal app and there it was, right? Like Bitcoin and all the cousins were there. And like it was exciting because it was ahead of when they said it was going to be there. So they shipped it faster than they said, right? Then they said, oh, it'll be here, next quarter. And bang, like it showed up. And the other one was the limits. They were like, oh, well, the limits will be like,
Yeah.
And the limits were like double of what they said they were going to be. So they're already like exceeding expectations, right? And I think that, judging from what happened, if you want to talk about FOMO, you should look at PayPal having Square FOMO, right? Because if you look at Cash App has been a barn burner for like Square. Like Square has really been the Square numbers, quarterly earnings, kind of dominated by Cash App, right? And the kind of like, the street is responding to Cash App because if you think about their merchant business, like how many restaurants now are like doing great with like the Square checkout with the point of sale devices? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
their primary original business is like lagging, and now Cash App is like booming, right? And I think PayPal is like, wow, like we want that. So I think it's very
Yeah.
exciting to see, and I'd love to hear kind of more from you around kind of your view about some of these kind of admitting it institutionals, right? Because it sounded like you had some interesting thoughts about their mindset.
So, I think it was July 4th weekend, and I was at a friend's, socially distant, compliant rooftop party. Exactly. I just want to say that there were, even back then, we only had about 6 to 7 people. And she's at Blackstone.
Oh yeah.
And, so just because how long I've been in crypto for and how passionate about it, I started talking. And she said, back in the day, compliance would still approve each and every crypto trade, let it be Bitcoin, ETH or whatnot.
Amazing.
But right now, they're just even skipping us. And now for Blackstone to come forward to lower their egos and to say that, look, you guys, we're trading this. And the other thing is like, again, JPM was trading it in 2018. They just never admitted it.
That's so
It,
big.
remember those good days and like simpler days. But now I think like starting, I think like for past 3 or 4 months or so, we've hit the phase where it's cool to hold Bitcoin. It's not a scam anymore. It's not a Ponzi scam. So trust me, like for the longest time, I've had eyes from like my normie friends saying, "Oh my God, this is all gonna burn. You'll probably starve till death." And thank God your husband has a stable job. And
I
so,
love that.
but yeah, but now I get, the minute Bitcoin touches 20K, and I think I can roll on my Instagram and be like, yeah, we're here back again. Within 2 years, you know what? As markets fluctuate, as the entire industry fluctuates, equities fluctuate, bonds, stocks, name it, uh, Bitcoin has been outperforming, like within 2 years, touching its highest 20K. I think we're off to an incredible 2021.
I thought your take on Bitcoin is the winner of the 2020 election. I thought that was kind of a great take. Really nice hot take. One of the things that I was tweeting on Miko Bits today is just an open question, which is I wonder
Yeah.
what the sentiment analysis of Bitcoin is on Parler, right? Which is sort of
Yeah.
the kind of alternative right wing Twitter, where a lot of people kind of retreated to after, Twitter, after Jack started doing that thing with the, labels on people's tweets that were false, right?
Yeah.
Or, deemed to be false. Anyhow, your
Yeah.
politics may vary. But what I wanted to point out, though, is um, I'm curious, right? Because Bitcoin seems to be fairly oblivious or neutral with respect to kind of political position.
I think the crypto, as in general, the entire industry, not the industry, not the people in the industry, but the currencies itself, I
Yeah.
would say, are politically agnostic.
Mm-hmm.
Because, both administrations have one person or the other person to offer to it. Even though, we can argue, Trump is against it or Biden is for it or Biden is against it or whatnot. But for the longest time, and I think even now, you would have seen it prior to the elections. There was a lot of sentiment floating around on Axios and other news outlets that how Wall Street is ready for how Wall Street. Sorry, 1 second. Sorry about that.
That's all
So how Wall Street is ready for Biden administration, right? And that was thoroughly and repeated, and everyone was saying that okay, fine, even if Biden was to tax the corporations more, um, everyone just wants Biden. On the other hand, Bitcoin really didn't care who's going to come and who's not
right.
going to come. Like we knew, so LedgerPrime is a hedge fund, right? And
Yeah.
so throughout the week, and that particular weekend, we were moving the apartment, and I kept telling my husband that look, Monday, it's Tuesday is the election day, and it's going to be a volatile week for us. So the apartment needs to be set up. And we were expecting a choppy market. We were expecting prices to be all up and down, sentiments to all flow around. But like I said, Bitcoin fared so well. Like Bitcoin literally probably had its, middle finger out and saying that you guys can pick whoever you want to pick. This is my dominance.
Yeah.
So and that was great to see. I think that's where we also broke our alliance with probably equity markets. I know we often like to compare Bitcoin to gold, but I think that's where we even broke any correlation between the two of them. And I think going forward, 2021, it's about time, other people give it like a separate asset class. Stop comparing it to any other asset at this point. It has been performing well. So I think it has shown its independency all around.
That's exciting. And it's really such an incredible kind of supportiveness, and I think it's a big mix of characters, right? I think one of the things that happened during the sort of previous all-time high sell-off is that, there were people who didn't want to be in for the long haul, but I think it's so interesting because a lot of those people have kind of sold off. I would say in terms of sellers, one of the things that kind of popped onto the radar is, there are still extant Bitcoins from the Silk Road, right? So the government actually is holding about $1 billion worth of Bitcoins from that era. So there may be that may produce like some selling pressure, but other than that, like it feels like a lot of people are buckled in for and one of the things I like to tell people is, I'm not a market timing guy, but like if you zoom the chart all the way out, it'll be interesting to look at. Right. If you zoom the Bitcoin chart all the way out, right, just look at it and tell me what's happening. Yeah.
And the other thing is, I feel like in 2018, a huge setback for crypto and the entire industry was SEC regulations, right?
Yeah.
Like this is when the ICO project started busting, and these retail investors started losing money out of Telegram, and that was the entire downfall. Now, what have we accomplished regulations-wise in past 2.5 years or so? One thing we know is that the regulators, all from DOJ to SEC to like CFTC, they all are well aware of the industry. It's not they're sleeping on it.
Yep.
But it's just like they're going after the bad players instead of the bad projects. So that's something that was tumultuous for Bitcoin first point around, but it can't be anymore. So we have even speaking of the charts you mentioned, even when the BitMEX news came out this year,
yeah, that was big.
That was big for almost everyone, right? Like,
sure.
For our DeFi projects, for like everyone, and it was eye-awakening. But did it really affect Bitcoin's price? Absolutely not. For like maybe a couple of hours, but it sustained through. So that's why I think it's a maturing asset that has proven itself over and over again in 2020.
Yes, and I think one of the things that's fascinating that was also in the news is that, SEC Chairman Jay Clayton announced, I think this morning, that he was actually heading out the door. So he's actually going to be gone before the end of the year, and that's very interesting. And obviously we don't know who's kind of next up in the docket. But what we do know is we know that Hester Pierce is like, secure as a commissioner for the next for the next while. So we there will be Bitcoin and crypto friendly regulators, at least in the SEC at the high level.
So what we were so far, what the news around BIN has been, either it's going to be Hester Pierce or Preet Bharara, who's also a very progressive attorney, and he was a district attorney of New York before. So both Preet and Hester Pierce are good news for the industry regardless.
Yeah, very good.
And then the other thing is, but you heard it here first. Let's talk about it, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about where Clayton would head after. Like, is he joining one of these blockchain projects, or is
he should do an ICO. He should do like Jay Clayton coin.
DeFi project. Support our DeFi brothers. No, but think about it, right? Like, recently, someone we know in common, Tegan Klein, was on a panel with an ex-CFTC commissioner, an ex-SEC commissioner, and we are very arms wide open for them. So I think that it's a great thing. So, I mean, not saying it, I'll just say it. I won't mind Coinbase poaching Jay Clayton January or so. But you heard it from me first.
That would be amazing. I remember I remember seeing him speaking at Stanford in the early days of ICO. So it's been a really interesting administration from that perspective. But I do think that they kind of had a measured deprioritization of the space, other than Commissioner Pierce. But it's really, I think, an exciting, obviously a terrific time. What I want to do is kind of talk about the crypto community. So I'm interested to get your perceptions about, because one of the things that's happening on community platforms, earlier I mentioned kind of Parler versus Twitter, which has kind of become a political division. But where people are constantly shifting where to learn about this new medium and where to engage. So obviously nobody's going to in-person conferences. So where is everyone?
God, I miss those. I miss those so much. I'll be the first one to admit I miss them. I actually just miss seeing humans. So
yeah.
Crypto, I think this is something that I often talk about and often say, because I've been a very early adopter and early employee, since 2016, right? I was an early employee at Consensus, and from there to Republic, and now to LedgerPrime. So I think for the most part, even till before this institutional adoption, the entire landscape has been community driven.
Yeah.
It's starting from projects, going on funding, going on trading, going on learning about it, going about media, name it. There has been one or two people that founded an outlet for it.
Yeah.
And from there onwards, more people came into the industry. So for us, it may seem like a large industry at this point, but for any outsider, it's only 200 to 300,000 professionals at max.
Oh, definitely at max.
So, but it's all been community driven, right? If I have to get hired at anyone, I just need to ask a couple of my crypto friends who would know someone somewhere. And for the longest time, that's what even supported trading. We often said that it's the same recycled capital. People who made monies in the ICO put it into Bitcoin or Ethereum. People who've made money in DeFi have put it into Ethereum 2.0. What comes into 2021, we're yet to see that. But now it's just getting widely accepted. And as far as learning about it goes, you remember the days when CoinDesk had a very bad UI, but they were one of the remember?
Yeah.
They were one of they were one of the first to
Unbelievable.
roll out their newsletters. And I still remember one of my first calls out in public was with Mike Dudas, and
Uh-huh.
he's like,
Yep.
"Look, I'm thinking of starting this crypto outlet that's just going to talk about crypto and fundraising for it. So would the public be interested?" And that was the start of the blog, which
Mm-hmm.
has
Mm-hmm.
become pretty, phenomenal over the years. So again, small driven industry by extremely smart people, but extremely community driven at this point.
That's wonderful. And I think one of the things that's been so interesting to see the evolution of the community is just really looking at community media and tools, right? Because it feels like, right now, for example, like crypto Twitter seems kind of noisy and a little junky, as it kind of maybe always has. And, I think Telegram had a big wave, but I think it's died down. I think a lot of DeFi is kind of obvious Discord now. So, like, how do you see this kind of media shift and evolution? And there's a lot happening on Signal too.
So I don't use Signal yet because of private messaging. Yes, I've seen projects use it. So even in DeFi's case, as much as we all want to hate it, ICOs and DeFi projects were literally started and announced on crypto Twitter first, and from there it went on to Telegram in ICO's case, and Discord in DeFi's case. And then the other thing is, honestly speaking, that's where still most of us still get our news from before it hits the news outlet.
Yep.
Um, Someone has to say it first. We have bunch of Bitcoin maximalists, bunch of Ethereum maximalists, and then there's like a normal community that's just talking about normal stuff. And I think that crypto, as noisy and as annoying as it can be, because even I can only tolerate it for a couple of hours, because I personally hate when people are just going at each other over either pricing or over who's building the better tech, because I think whatever it is, it's a big win for the entire scape. Like, we cannot have one dominating chain. We probably need down the lane multiple dominating chains. So, but for even a couple of hours or so, I think crypto Twitter just does become my go-to resource on learning what's happening internally that the media itself isn't covering. And then Telegram is great for just the community catch ups, uh, whether it's friend circle, whether it's projects catch up, fundraising, and then Discord I barely use, but I know that a lot of DeFi projects have been
Yeah, it's
talking
definitely
about there.
seems to be a DeFi hub. So that's
Yeah.
I like be honest, I like Discord's security capabilities better. Obviously, Signal strong in security as well. So security and privacy do matter. I don't, Telegram security is pretty weak. Privacy is pretty weak. So I think it's just the evolution.
I get scams. I literally wake up to a couple of spams and a couple of like just random messages, and I'm like, guys, please, like, this is only for like there's a lot of spamming on Telegram.
So as far as kind of like the era, like, one of the things I'm very excited about is I'm excited about some of these much larger projects that have actually produced nice results. Like, for example, like if you look at Filecoin, if you look at Space Race, their petascale storage, so they're really launching a lot of really robust and well built and very, very extensive software. Right? So like that's exciting. I feel like the progress that people are making on Polkadot and Kusama, like
I was just going to say that.
that's very exciting, right? And my excitement is really like I'm definitely agreeing with your kind of way of looking, because you're talking about kind of the need for there to be some diversity and more, layer ones and more blockchains, right? So I totally agree. And so what I'd love to do is kind of toss it back your way. I know you like the dot ecosystem, but like, do you have other kind of major projects that you have excitement about?
almost everyone. I actually, so from like a funds perspective, right? Like we want everyone to succeed because then they'll have other projects that are going to build on them, and we would have more opportunities to invest and trade. So we, from a funds perspective, we want all of them to exceed. And then even from personally, like you just cannot have one winner. I mean, you can have a winner, but the thing is, all the runners up learn from the winner and they work on their development and they get better with time. So, and then it's multiple winners by the end of it. Like, look, if we're going to talk about, like, if we compare Web3 to Web2, Yahoo came first, and then came, remember there used to be answer.com, and then there used to be
Ask Jeeves.
Ask Jeeves,
Alta
there was
Vista.
Bing.com, like all of, exactly. Like I don't even, AOL.com, like what happened to that? Like
Yeah.
I grew up on it. So, but eventually Google took the market, but it's not that Google was the first one. Google probably learned from everyone, but now we have DuckDuckGo, Safari, for instance, still players in the market. So I don't think like for Web3 there needs to be one winner. I think it's going to be multiple, and I'm personally rooting for each and every one of them.
Wow. That's very generous. And, one of the things that I think I'm excited as well about are the dynamics around kind of ETH2 staking, right? I'm tracking kind of the ETH2 staking Rhino on Twitter and watching the kind of meter, right? Because it's filling reasonably well. It feels like, mainnet launch is I would guess it's probably going to be December. It'll probably be on schedule. That's my guess. So like,
I think so too.
I mean, it's filling, maybe it was about 1% a day a couple days ago, but like, which isn't fast enough, but it's going to accelerate. I think it'll accelerate. So, for me, that's another thing to get excited about. Because if you think about the impact to the supply of Ether at a really critical time, right? So, if you think about that, like there's definitely a strong bullish case to be made there in light of everything that's happening, right? So I think it's really fascinating.
And I think that a couple of days ago, I had this conversation with someone else that will 8.0 will they be able to meet their the ETH requirement, the tokens requirement. And someone else brought it up that obviously one of the whales is probably going to intervene, one of these crypto funds, and just fill the roundup. So because you have to understand, Ethereum is supported by a lot of the original crypto funds like GBTC, Grayscale, and all. So I think like Ethereum at this point doesn't need to worry. But I do wish Vitalik like very well, and I hope he succeeds in every single thing that he's trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a huge Ethereum fan, and I definitely think that's going to I think people underestimate how important developer ecosystem is, how important developer tools are, and I think people are really, I think, overweight on performance as being kind of this holy grail, and I think it's important to admit that Ethereum phase 0 is exactly that, right? Which is, it's just phase 0. So like, it isn't like, oh, we're going to have this entire high performance computing model available in the Ethereum ecosystem. We won't, right? Like, that's not happening right now. But
So I
go ahead.
so I remember when Ethereum was zero phase, because I was at Consensus, right? So Singularity TV was building their project, and we had so much issue because crypto kitties was congesting the
Yes.
network.
Yes.
So that was our issue back in 2017, right? 2018, 2019, 2020 comes. What's our issue with Ethereum now? Gas prices. So that's it. That's the only issue we have. And then going forward, I feel like by 2021 or 2022, it's going to be semi-limited to like lesser issues. So I think like even in my own lifetime in crypto period, Ethereum has come a long way.
Yeah, it really has. And even some of the incremental updates have kind of been beneficial. So, I definitely don't bet against the Ethereum core dev. I mean, it's a phenomenal group of engineers. I mean, a lot of they're going multi-client out of ETH2, which I think is super good for the ecosystem. And I think that if you think about the amount of economic power that's helping to secure that network, I think there's a lot of good reasons to be bullish about it. Yeah, so it's overall it's just been really a great kind of positive sentiment. Like what do you see happening, over the next 6 months?
I think much more adoption. That's one thing for sure. I think each and almost everyone is going to come out and say, oh, they're holding crypto. So they're holding Bitcoin or they're trading Bitcoin. So that's something we're probably going to see within the next 2 months, like just every other day. What I am excited about is I'm very excited about the doc ecosystem, the Solana ecosystem, Solana Serum. I've never met Sam, but I've heard great things. So, praising on that. But I do think that we're probably going to go easy on Ethereum, and we'll probably pick another chain to like call out on like daily basis. So because there's so much going to be more, right? And like we haven't even brought up Cosmos yet. So I think we should even pick up Cosmos. There hasn't been there's been a lot of development on that as well. So I think we'll, take that into consideration. Near protocol. A lot more development than what currently is. One thing that I personally keep hearing, and I haven't seen that yet, is retail applications for DeFi protocols. I personally haven't seen a project, but I've heard that they've already started pitching. So that's the other thing in pipeline.
I like that, and I think there's definitely user experience, user interface issues around kind of custody that probably need to be resolved a bit more before we get real retail DeFi. But I do think that we are seeing already exposure to DeFi yields, through CeFi providers, right? And I think that's almost a killer application, right? So, I think Celsius just announced $2.2 billion of assets under their management, and it's growing.
Not surprised.
It's
Actually,
growing
not
robustly,
surprised,
right?
yeah.
Because if you think about it, like yield is the killer app, right? Like that's what the retail people should want that, right? I mean, their banks aren't providing it.
Yeah, and then the other thing is we're probably going to see better infrastructure start coming into play. So more and more infrastructure, because you talked about custody, and infrastructure is something that we deeply look into it. So more and more around infrastructure. So there's like better trades all around.
Yeah, I definitely see that. And I think that, I like this notion we're going to hear a steady drumbeat of kind of more and more participants. Obviously, we've seen, one thing that we could see as a follow on is, what's happening at the moment. I think because of the bit license, I think PayPal is kind of holding 1 Bitcoin per every Bitcoin that they have, under custody. But I think the thing that they have to do is, maybe even allocate more treasury to it. So, I think that there is an opportunity for them to, follow. I know MicroStrategy is a bit of a funny company and a bit cranky, but but there's an opportunity, right? There's opportunity. We know that the Square treasury is holding Bitcoin, so that, there may be more enterprise and corporate treasury management people that maybe allocate asset maybe a little less crazily, a little more judiciously. But I think we'll probably see announcements like that as well.
Yeah, we're getting there. Alternative assets. That's someone very traditional private equity fund I spoke to on Friday. That's what they call. They're like, we're just putting them under alternative asset category, and we're opening up rounds. For if any of the other investors are interested looking into them.
That's exciting. Well, good. This has been a great conversation. I think people will be excited to hear about all of these perspectives. And, do you have any parting words of wisdom?
Parting words of no investment advice for sure, always. But I think my only part community, my friends, and so many of my dearest friends in the space. I feel like we're finally getting there. Like, I would say that we've made it, but I think we're finally getting there. And, we see world dominance in like no time, and all of us would be rewarded and highlighted for all of the hard work we've put in. It's not easy, right? Like going, picking an industry, going like head deep in it where it doesn't make sense. Like if you'll ask my mother, for instance, she's like, she sells Bitcoin. That's all she can say. So that she's in Bitcoin. But how much, how much, the normalcy has come forward in in this short period of time, and how most of us have probably given so much to this space. You setting up a YouTube channel. I've seen you speak. I've seen you contribute on private calls. I've seen you hold opinions on Ethereum. So it's very important. And then the other thing is like learning all about it as we go on is another art itself. Like, because there is no textbook out on crypto blockchain yet. Like, I teach the subject and I literally pick out topics from Spencer Noon's blogs, because
I do
that's
like
what.
the Antonopoulos book, although it's reversed in this image.
Interesting. Can you please send me the link,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
I'm looking for material for my class. So I'm starting teaching again in January, and this time around it's master's students at NYU Tandon.
Oh, great.
So
Wonderful.
so anything that
But
I
I,
can
I
teach my.
but I do agree. Like part of the impetus of this channel is again to kind of like take sort of typical private industry conversations and kind of make them public, right? Because you and I would have this kind of conversation. I'm sure you're having similar with lots of people, but like allowing a broader anyone to listen in and kind of learn
Understanding,
and
yeah.
feel like they can join in, and it may be that at first there are things we say that might sound a little puzzling, but like I think with eventual exposure it becomes familiar. And I think to me what you're describing about this kind of adoption pattern is really amazing, right? Because I was speaking with someone who's kind of very new to this, and the profound effect of seeing it in PayPal was a real deep experience for them. They were basically like, okay, I guess it's legitimate now. Like it was this phase change for them where they were like, okay, this is real and it's official and it's money, right? Like as opposed to before, it was just kind of binary. It's before it was like,
Yeah.
oh, this weird thing that those weird people do, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, now it's money. Like it's like really.
So I mean, not to add to it, but I think a couple of weeks ago I took my kid to a playground and I ran into a very old friend who's like a very traditional lawyer
Yeah.
at a very traditional healthcare company, and she was like, "Oh, so yeah, so what are you up to?" And I'm like, "I'm at hedge fund, but we only trade like I mean, the first thing I'd write to say right away for is like, but we only trade crypto." And she goes like, "Are you guys doing okay?" And I'm like, "Oh, better than you can think." This is before PayPal. I
Yeah.
need to set up another play date and be like, "So what do you think now?" Like,
Yeah.
do you think we're still doing okay? So, but yeah, the PayPal has been great recognition. And all of these CNBC interviews by one or the other hedge fund manager has been great for us. And then, like I said, like us surviving the pandemic and us like coming along far along this way, like yay for us.
That's terrific. Great, a great concluding note. Yay for us.
Yay for us.
I like that. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nico.
Okay, chat soon.